right. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the technical issues. My name is Bernadette Smith, and you are?
I'm Heather Vickery. Hi.
I am CEO of Equality Institute, and Heather is my partner. And we are here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, which is my weekly LinkedIn live show in which I talk about good vibes in DEI with a special guest every day. Probably can't see the link in the corner because of our technical issues, but if you don't already subscribe to the 5 Things newsletter, you can get to it by joining theequalityinstitute.com/join. Because every week I write a newsletter about what's going right in diversity, equity, and inclusion, because there's a lot of stories out there about what's going wrong. And I think there's a lot of good things that need to be celebrated. And so that's what I write about every week. And then on Mondays, I have a special guest and we talk about these good vibes in DEI. So Heather is here with me today, not only to talk about the good vibes, but also to talk about her new book, F Fearless, which we're going to talk about at the end of the show. But first, Heather, let's get started about the good vibes. So this week I wrote about what I call the fallacy of full self. And it's because I've had some conversations about how realistic is it for us to actually expect employees to bring their full selves to work? It's the whole buzzword. It's like, that's what inclusion is. Bring your full self to work. You're going to get the most productivity. You're going to get the most innovation. That's where the rewards of diversity, equity, and inclusion are. But is that a realistic expectation of folks? I mean, you do coaching. You're a professional coach. So what do you think?
I actually think it's a really interesting question. It's going to be self-defined a little bit, bringing your whole self to work. And it's very in line with this whole concept of vulnerability, right? And I'd like to remind everyone that vulnerability does not mean turning yourself inside out. You don't have to spill your guts. You're not cutting yourself open and putting everything on the table. You're sharing parts of you, the parts of you that you want to share, and you share different parts in different spaces. And I think showing up at work is the same thing. And it's more about knowing that you can have certain conversations and bring certain parts of yourself to the table rather than feeling like you have to share everything and say everything. Nobody does that. Right?
Sure.
Like straight folks, white folks, cis folks, they don't share every single thing that they do at work. And so, I don't think that's something we should be thriving for.
But what's the line? Because, I mean, bringing your full self, I think, for a lot of people means, or the assumption of what that means is that if we kind of lay it all on the table, the good, bad, and the ugly of what's even happening in our personal lives, then we're going to be less distracted and more able to really focus and get the job done. And that's where the innovation occurs. So where do you think the line is?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe, as a coach, I do believe that what's happening in your personal life affects what's happening at work and vice versa. But I think the line is in being thoughtful and professional and intentional, right? It might be very important to tell your direct team, your boss, the people who are working with you or underneath you, I have this situation happening. I may need a little grace, or I may need a little time or off or an extra support. It doesn't mean that you have to send out a memo to everyone in the company about it. It doesn't mean that you have to write a blog post and share it with everyone or whatever. So you still have to be thoughtful and intentional. And quite frankly, I think when the folks who write this stuff say, bring your whole self to work, they're not asking about that. They're saying it's okay to come out as non-binary. They're saying it's okay to say, celebrate whatever you celebrate. I don't know that they're asking folks to.
I think they're also asking folks to talk about how they feel about the latest, racial hate incident, or like, I think that's part of it too. The stuff that can really drag us down and distract us. But I do think that there's sort of a nice solution in the sense that not a lot of companies offer, by the way, but one company that does offer it is Tyson Foods, which has for a while now had a chaplain program, which they have over 100 chaplains who are non-denominational, and they're available for employees to process whatever is going on so that they can actually be more present with their team and with their manager, and so that they have those fewer distractions. It's been a huge success.
It's fascinating to me that it would be chaplain and not therapy, but it's a cool thing to
Mhm.
it's a cool thing to offer people to have some sort of outlet, some sort of
Yeah.
emotional outlet to process. Yeah.
That's right. All right. So I mean, we'll keep going with good vibes. Let's talk about what's next. Across all company stores, McDonald's has achieved gender pay parity, which means that men and women at all company stores, including McDonald's headquarters, receive equal pay. This does not include franchisees, and this does affect 180,000 people.
Wow.
It may seem like something that is obvious, or I can't believe this hasn't already happened, but it's actually very rare.
Absolutely.
And so it's a really big deal, and I want to celebrate McDonald's for achieving pay parity across gender for 180,000 people.
That's incredible. I mean, that's amazing. And yeah, this should be a thing that is just always done. And it's a little devastating to figure out and to realize just how infrequent something like that actually is.
Yeah, and I want to say that in particular because last week was Latina Equal Pay Day, which means that it takes Latinas in the US a full year plus 10 months to make up for the equivalent pay of white men.
Wow.
So 21 months or so for Latinas to earn the same amount as a white man in this country. And so McDonald's equal pay is very significant, especially given those types of statistics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So this is another example of I can't believe this already wasn't the case.
But a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, some of these things that I talk about on 5 things are really about, well, this should have already happened, but let's celebrate it anyway because progress is progress. Now, up until recently, when you typed in Google Images things like beautiful skin and professional hairstyles,
you got white women.
You were getting white people for the most part. But Google has recently changed their algorithms to be more inclusive and show Black folks and other people of color when you type those types of search terms. So again, it's the kind of thing that is like, how is that not already true? But with data sets and with artificial intelligence, what you give them is what they give back. So if you've entered bias in by beautiful people are white, then that's what you're going to get back.
Fascinating.
So I guess we're celebrating Google for updating their algorithms.
Yeah, it's about time, Google. Welcome to the party.
To change the standards of what's beautiful and what's professional, right?
Absolutely.
Or at least show that there are more than one way to be beautiful and professional.
Lots of ways.
Lots of ways.
There are lots of ways. Yeah.
All right. Next up is AMC Theaters. So AMC Theaters recently announced a policy at over 200 of their locations to have at least one screening per week in closed captions. Now, in the past, AMC and still currently AMC allows people who have hearing disabilities to get a special adapter that they can use to watch a show, to watch a film.
That's awesome.
But now, in addition to that, they also have special screenings in closed captions, which I think is pretty remarkable as well. So it's just one more way that they are taking the extra step to be inclusive.
That's awesome. I actually just saw a tweet this past weekend that asked why there can't be more movies with closed captions. So,
well, now you know that AMC is leading the way.
That's awesome.
I mean, and those are the types of things that I don't really think about because I don't have hearing impairment.
Except you love your closed captions.
I do, but I do love closed captions. I don't know that I'll watch movies in closed captions, maybe like in theaters, but it's nice that there's an option, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do. I watch lots of TV in closed
caption.
Yeah. So I guess it's the ways that there are to be inclusive. There are so many of them, and that's what I like to celebrate each week in 5 things. On the topic of disabilities, if you go to the New York Yankees baseball team, Major League Baseball team website, they really do have a best-in-class web page designed for baseball attendees who have disabilities. So the Yankees offer features like sensory bags for like fidget spinners. They offer noise canceling headsets for folks who are on the autism spectrum. They have on the website, they tell people where there are electrical outlets so that they can recharge their scooter or their wheelchair.
I love that.
It's
And I'm
very
telling
specific.
you, those headphones are good for lots of people. Sensory comes in a lot of different ways. I love my noise canceling headphones, and I'm not on the autism spectrum.
And I love my fidget spinners. So, and
It's
I
true.
may or may not be on the autism spectrum. I don't know. But you know, these are the types of things that I don't really have to think about. You don't really have to think about, but they really make a difference in the lives of folks. And there aren't a lot of companies, there aren't a lot of facilities, not a lot of sports teams that have that level of detail, which is why I'm considering the Yankees website best in class on how to be inclusive of these types of folks.
Yeah. More websites should be doing that, especially for live event situations.
Exactly. And more organizations should be looking to that as, yeah, absolutely, as a best practice. By the way, if you don't already get the newsletter, you can go to theequalityinstitute.com and look at the blog, and you can see the most recent posts. So you can get actual links to the things that we're talking about during today's show. So all of these things are exciting. All of these things bring me hope. I hope that the folks who are watching today get some hope from these stories, these inspirations. And my idea is with the newsletter, with the show, is to give you some ideas that you can bring back to your own organization, that you can adapt, that you can say, hey, that's really cool. Maybe we can give that a try, and find some inspiration there that's going to lead you towards building a more inclusive world. That's my goal. That's my vision. And Heather, thanks for talking to me about it today. But now let's talk about your new book.
Thanks for having me.
F Fearless. Show us the book. It's coming out on Thursday.
Yes, on Thursday. That's my name.
Making the brave leap. So tell me, what is the why are you so disparaging to the word fearless?
I am literally disparaging to the word fearless. I believe that we are sold this concept societally that the goal should be fearless, that we shouldn't experience fear. If we are really a leader or we are really successful, we don't have fear. And it's just not true, right? Fear is a natural human emotion. We feel fear. And in many cases, that can save our lives. In some cases, it can slow us down, but in every case, it can teach us something about ourselves. And, you know, if we are attempting to be fearless, what that really means is you're not being thoughtful. You're not being intentional. You're plowing ahead without planning and implementing properly. And so instead of that, and I say F fearless, instead of that, I urge folks to choose bravely. That's the cool thing about fear, is that's what allows us to be brave. When we acknowledge our fears and we take them apart and we make choices anyway, or we learn from them, then we step into brave.
Okay. So it's not about, so the reason that we're effing fearless is because that it's the term. That's the term. Because what we really want to do is use that as power.
Absolutely. We want to be brave, not fearless.
Okay. Got it. And being brave can take all sorts of forms. So who's the audience for your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So my book breaks down my coaching method, which is called the Brave Method. Okay. And Brave is my whole business. So we could have called that Brave is my business, but I thought this title was more fun. And the Brave Method is a creative and strategic approach to problem solving, building, and creating a life that you love and a business that you love. And so the target audience is somebody who recognizes that they are human and that they would like some simple, repeatable processes to getting out of what feels icky and creating what they actually want. Success on their own terms, bravery on their own terms, joy and happiness. And it sounds a little trite, but it's true. And it can be used over and over. I've had clients use it to build businesses. I've personally used it to rebuild my own life and transform into a whole new business. And I've had clients who have then applied it to grief or divorce or writing a book. It could be anything, right?
So you do some work with companies in their employee resource groups. So how do you use the Brave Method with cohorts of employees?
Absolutely. So that's the cool thing about this is human-centric, not corporate or entrepreneur centric. And so BRAVE, the acronym stands for boundaries, reassessment, reframing, resilience, action and accountability, vulnerability and expansion and empowerment, right?
Okay.
And so those are all things that everybody needs to thrive, to be happy, to be successful. And we can use them in lots of different orders. They're in that order in this book because that's the way it worked with the word brave.
Sometimes you start with the acronym. Sometimes you start with the acronym and then you find the concepts to go along with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But really, it's about feeling good. And I have worked really hard to make this a fun, approachable book. There's short memoir stories. I do case studies where past guests on my podcast, the Brave Files podcast, or clients that I've worked with, and I call those Brave Spotlights. Okay. And then Brave Action. So things that you can go and do right now to get started, to find this space for yourself, to create more brave opportunities, and to really revolutionize what it means to be everyday brave for you in your life at each individual moment.
Okay. That's really cool. So this book is for everyone, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are an employee, whether you are just a person in the world who knows that there's more to life than what is happening now.
Yeah. Right? I mean, they tell you not to say that this is for everyone. There are a lot of dirty words. So you have to like dirty words.
Dirty? Bad, profane.
Bad, profane. That word right there. I use curse words. You got to kind of have a sense of humor, I think, to enjoy my book. It's not stuffy. It's not corporate-y. It's very approachable and fun. And my hope is that it takes concepts that can feel stuffy and routine and formulaic and make them achievable. The underlying path throughout the whole book is this notion of break it down and make it smaller. If anything feels overwhelming, boundaries, goal setting, reassessment, planning, strategic stuff, communication, anything that you can think of, we can always make it smaller and start in smaller increments just to get started, just to get that motivation train going.
Yeah, I mean, momentum is everything.
Absolutely.
I like to say that I'm fueled by momentum.
You are.
And when I feel like I'm stuck, then I'm stuck for a while. And then when I'm unstuck, I really take off. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's normal. And I'm a lot like that. But there are ways to incrementally get out of stuck a little bit faster.
Okay.
And I also want to say that this is not a toxic positivity approach. My approach does not
be a little bit guilty of that sometimes personally.
My approach does not mean that you don't feel hurt or sad or mad or angry. You can and should feel all of your feelings. It's a really important part of the process. Sure. And you can use that to decide. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stop or rest or say no or take a vacation day or decide that I'm not going to do this project anymore or this thing no longer serves me, right? Sometimes it's surrendering. We spend a lot of time in that space. Surrendering. I've done everything I can and now I'm surrendering to the outcome.
Just let it go and see what happens.
Let it go and see what happens. Yeah.
Well, I am glad that I personally live with a coach. And so when I get stuck, all I have to do is pull up a chair next to you and you give me a little pep talk. Sometimes I get pep talks when I don't actually want one too, just occasionally.
I try to ask first.
You do.
As a good coach.
You do. But I'm really grateful that I get to sort of witness the Brave method firsthand and that I've been able to watch you on your journey towards writing the book because I've read the book. I think it's really great. Thanks. I'm really proud of you. I'm proud to be your partner. And God. Badass. Maybe I shouldn't swear on LinkedIn Live, but
she is my partner.
Power lesbians activate. There we go.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. I really hope that you'll grab the book. You can pre-order it right now. It's fully released on Thursday. What is the link that I gave you?
I don't know.
All right. You can find it on Amazon and bookshop.org. I want to say it's vickeryandco.com/ffearless. I think that's it. And you can find out all the different ways you can order the book. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Catch us next week or catch me next week with another special guest for 5 Things in 15 Minutes. And if you don't already get the newsletter, you can subscribe at theequalityinstitute.com/join for more good vibes and DEI. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Heather.
Bye.
Bye.